Nicole Kidman makes her first public appearance since divorcing Keith Urban. Together, we've endured much. Now is the time on our timeline. Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban were the Hollywood-Nashville dream couple for nearly 20 years, an Oscar-winning actress and country music artist who triumphed. But beyond the red carpets and duets, things fell apart. The court filings show Nicole filed for divorce after 19 years, with insiders stating she tried to preserve the marriage. His first public performance after the separation featured no wedding band, no love song for Nicole, and revised lyrics that suggested a new past. Nicole is now showing her side after the golden couple broke up. We examine what made them so popular and what ended one of Hollywood's most famous love stories. Nicole, the quiet dreamer turned Hollywood royalty. Australian parents living overseas had Nicole marry Kidman in Honolulu, Hawaii in 1967. Anthony Kidman, a clinical psychologist and biochemist, and Janelle, a nurse and educator, were her parents. The family returned to Sydney when she was young, where she was raised with discipline and ambition. Little Nicole was terribly bashful, unlike the confident woman she became. She blushed so much when called to speak in class that her teachers felt she lacked confidence. She was cautious, yet had a vivid imagination. She found solace in ballet, drama, and youth theater, where she could express her difficult emotions. Talent was evident by her teens. She took advantage of Australia's booming film industry by appearing in television movies and the 1983 cult horror BMX Bandits. Her pale beauty and height stood out, but her emotional range convinced directors she was meant for more. In the late 1980s, Hollywood called. Nicole met Tom Cruise, her first major love and heartbreak during this rise. One of Hollywood's most photographed couples, they married in 1990. Nicole's marriage brought prestige and misery. Tom's religion, Scientology, hampered their relationship. Her 2001 divorce cost her her husband and main custody of their two adopted children, Isabella and Connor, yet she rarely discusses them. The wound was profound. Friends later claimed that Nicole felt bereft of motherhood and isolated from her children. For a woman who wanted a family, the breakup was a life-changing experience. It's possible that when she met Keith Urban, she was determined to restore her ideal of home and family. Keith, the troubled dreamer with a guitar, was born in Whangarei, New Zealand, the same year as Nicole. When his family moved to Queensland, Australia, when he was young, his mentality became restless and rebellious, always seeking escape. His father, Bob, operated a convenience store and loved country music, which was rare in suburban Australia. He pushed Keith to play guitar, and by 6, he was performing. Country music gave him identification and therapy with its tragedy and redemptive stories. He had a great musical skill, but a troubled home situation. His family's conflict and financial troubles may have led to his lifelong yearning for stability. In his teens, he performed in talent showcases and small bars, developing his style and image as a melancholy country outsider with a rock star edge. He quit school to pursue music full-time. For Keith, there was no backup. Music was his only escape, but skill brought demons. He experimented with booze and drugs in his 20s. He wasn't stable after fame. It exacerbated pandemonium. He sought fame in Nashville in the early 1990s. He broke through in 1999 with his self-titled American debut album after years of touring. Keith became country music's new heartthrob with his guitar skills, disheveled hair, and wistful voice. Hidden behind the achievement was self-destruction. Before meeting Nicole in 2005, he had been in and out of treatment. He constantly worried that his addictions would destroy everything he had built. Nicole and Keith appeared to be from separate worlds, Hollywood glamour versus Nashville roughness. They were constrained by their stuff. Nicole was afraid of authority and betrayal after a broken family and marriage. Keith was volatile, having tasted both stardom and obscurity, but he never completely overcame self-sabotage. When they met, both were in transition. Nicole returned from her divorce stronger than ever, earning an Oscar for The Hours and solidifying her legacy as a leading actor. She remained emotionally raw, seeking security after a decade of turmoil. Keith was a rising star in the competitive American country music scene. However, celebrity, touring, temptation, and a market that values image over sound were driving him to the brink. He needed someone to ground him and make him believe in anything beyond the stage. Looking back, the foreshadowing is obvious. Keith's restlessness and addiction always clashed with her need for stability. Their union promised healing. Her stability may have helped her restore her family and redeem him, but it also sowed future strife. Nicole considered dating another celebrity risky. She learned during her marriage to Tom Cruise how cruel the public eye can be. Keith was vulnerable, almost fragile, and it triggered her protective instincts. He saw her as a muse and reflection. His discipline and achievement showed his volatility, but his love allowed him to become the man he always wanted to be. Their childhoods made them complex, wounded people. In 2005, they met fatefully. However, it was more volatile chemistry, cross paths, and fairy tale romance. A Hollywood fantasy scenario unfolded when Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban met in 2005. Two global stars, both Australian, born in the same year, both hardened by past difficulties, collided at the moment their lives looked to be reborn. Red carpets and glossy magazines presented their meeting as fate. The partnership was more about two wounded people seeking salvation than destiny. The first spark was at the January 2005 G'day USA Gala in Los Angeles, which celebrated Australians in Hollywood. Nicole had rebuilt her career after her divorce from Tom Cruise and was an Oscar-winning actress. Keith, however, was a rising Nashville artist whose songs were becoming pop. After their introduction, she said she didn't think he was interested. He was courteous, yet reticent. Although they exchanged numbers, he didn't call her for months. Years later, she admitted that his initial indifference nearly scuttled the romance. Once he reached out, something clicked. Once started, their romance moved rapidly. They were photographed in May. By year's end, she described him in interviews as the man who swept her off her feet. She saw him as freedom after her marriage to Tom had suffocated her. Unlike Tom Cruise, he was passionate, raw, and unpolished. Keith saw her as legitimate, elegant, and a calming force he had never experienced. He walked red carpets with Nicole as her partner by November, not just as her date. Their chemistry was clear, and the press loved them. Australia's golden children met in America. After a year of dating, they married in a spectacular wedding at Sydney's Cardinal Soretti Memorial Chapel on Manly Peninsula in June 2006. She wore a Balenciaga gown with a stunning veil, while he looked like a romantic troubadour with his long hair. The intimate celebration was more important than the Hollywood and country music stars on the guest list. She entered the church by candlelight, holding back tears, while he serenaded her during the reception. Fans saw it as the perfect climax to their tumultuous pasts. Nicole, who had been manipulated by her previous lover, had discovered a man who loved her completely. In the hands of a world-renowned actress, Keith found redemption. Unfortunately, life was less perfect than fairy tales. Initial cracks. After 4 months of marriage, Keith entered alcohol rehab, a devastating blow to their married bliss. Crisis struck Nicole just as she finished her thank you cards. Tabloids claimed she married a time bomb. He felt humiliated by the relapse. He promised that her love would keep him steady, but his old tendencies returned swiftly. Nicole put loyalty over shame, always protecting her privacy. She visited him in recovery and refused to let the press see her falter. Later interviews quoted him as saying she saved his life. Insiders saw a more complex picture. She was unable to save her marriage to Tom. Her new duty was healer and protector with Keith. She trusted him and second chances. This loyalty would shape their marriage, for better and ill. After a rocky start, the pair spent years building their reputation as one of Hollywood's unusual, enduring romances. She played blockbusters like Australia and critically lauded flicks like Rabbit Hole. He toured constantly and won many Grammys, cementing his standing as a country music superstar. Publicly, they were loving. He revived her, she said. Keith often honored her at awards events, sometimes crying. Hidden behind the curated image was tension. His career involved extended tours while she filmed abroad. They even tried to keep it together by never spending more than a few weeks apart. However, insiders said their schedules often clashed. Nicole, traumatized by her separation from Isabella and Connor Cruz, clung to family. After having Sunday Rose in 2008 and Faith Margaret in 2010, she devoted herself to motherhood. He loved his kids but struggled to manage parenting and touring as a musician. Later, they presented themselves as Hollywood cynics' remedy. Interviewers praised them for proving true love can survive fame. The airport photos of the family, her holding the girls while he carried bags, showed a close bond. Their relationship had eroded beneath the surface. He struggled with sobriety constantly. Her need for stability sometimes translated into control, and acquaintances suggested the couple's conflicts were deeper than they admitted. They persisted in preserving the fairy tale. Their early years together were distinguished by falling in love quickly, getting married quickly, and weathering the crisis quickly. They never slowed down to address their foundation problems due to their enthusiasm. They pretended to be a redeemed bad kid and his patient savior for nearly 20 years. No one understood that the same frenetic energy that brought them love would also bring them grief. As with reality, fairy tales were fragile and based on hope and performance, but pressure mounted. Love under pressure. Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban had endured more hardship than most couples in their first decade of marriage. Short rehab months after the wedding, long career-related separations, and raising two girls in the public eye generated continual pressure. However, they symbolized resilience for years. By the mid-2010s, tension rumors increased. There were whispers of disputes over scheduling, Keith's nightlife, and Nicole's intensity. The couple rejected the rumors in interviews, often acting together. Nicole often said they've never been stronger, and Keith called her his rock. Cracks appear even when hidden. Friends of the couple said she was tired of carrying his emotional burdens. She admired his paintings but worried about his mental health. Keith sometimes reacted poorly when it was his turn to be rescued. He reportedly wants her equal, not a project. They split for the same reason they stayed together: their contradiction. Nicole adored his vulnerability but dreaded it. He admired her strength but felt overwhelmed. Their marriage was a struggle between passion and tiredness, saving and resisting. The public narrative that they were the love tale that beat the odds persisted. Few recognized the effort required to keep that illusion. How much time did they spend faking it? Massive pressure to live up to their image. Not only husband and wife. They gave audiences hope that love could withstand addiction, distance, and stardom. The mythology included every photo and public gesture. History shows that mythology can inspire and crush. Nicole and Keith were trapped in their fairy tale. Their girls' upbringing reflected their contrasts. Nicole stressed routine, consistency, and protecting her children from celebrity, learning from her broken family. Keith was lenient, playing the fun father. Their girls loved both parents, but insiders said Nicole felt undermined, and he felt blamed for not being serious enough. Not the dramatic battles tabloids want. They were quieter splits that erode trust and connection. Divorce follows tabloid rumors. As the 20s began, tabloids speculated about marriage fissures. There were stories of conflicts, time apart, and Keith's old demons. Nicole and Keith rejected the accusations, typically appearing together after a story broke. Nicole calmly claimed in interviews that we've never been stronger. Despite protestations, the rumors were true. Keith struggled with sobriety. Insiders said she never entirely recovered from her dread of relapse, even if he did not plummet as far. She was vigilant, occasionally tense. Keith found being observed and doubted oppressive, even when he was performing well. Nicole was tired of being the anchor. She loved him, but she wanted a balanced marriage without continual storm preparation. The gap between their public and private personas may have revealed their breakdown. Privately, they drifted, fought, and circled unsolved concerns. Publicly, they defended the fairy tale. Red carpet appearances became more significant, as if they were performing for themselves, reminding each other and the public of the love tale they previously believed in. Keith would hold Nicole's hand, kiss her shoulder, and speak in her ear at gatherings. Although she smiled calmly, observers remarked that it seemed staged. Like performers delivering memorized lines, the affection seemed genuine, yet strained. Every marriage has unspoken resentments, but theirs got louder each year. Nicole was said to despise his need for her strength and as his wife and rescuer. He hated how she managed herself, him, their children, and their image with military precision. The pair constantly negotiated, according to friends. Freedom and security were his and her desires. He sought passion, she peace. Neither was incorrect, but their needs rarely aligned. In 2023 and 2024, whispers grew louder. Anonymous sources in entertainment mags suggested they lived apart, but together. She started attending gatherings alone, and paparazzi images supported the theory. He was seen touring without his wedding band as they skirted interview inquiries about each other. The pair rejected the collapse narrative. Nicole often said marriage was hard, a modest but telling remark. He claimed she was everything, even as his statements seemed like scripted dialogue rather than spontaneous utterances. Every unraveling has a tipping point, and theirs was in summer 2025. Cracks had become fissures by then. She spent more time with her daughters, escaping the speculation circus. He focused on music, touring harder and expressing himself in introspective performances. Their loved ones believed the split wasn't explosive. Neither scandal nor argument ended. It was the gradual realization that they no longer supported each other. Nicole, heartbroken yet determined, recognized she could no longer be partner and caretaker. Keith, exhausted by Nicole's demands, left. The world gasped when she filed for divorce in late September 2025, alleging irreconcilable differences. The end seemed imminent to those watching attentively. These two created one of Hollywood's most beloved stories of redemption, tenacity, and love for nearly 20 years. The brief court documents described irreconcilable conflicts, but they conveyed a far more nuanced story. The formal separation and public unmasking revealed the raw realities of a marriage that had long struggled to survive. Nicole filed in Davidson County, Tennessee, where the couple lived. Even though the paperwork was simple, its effects were huge. She left after 19 years of marriage, 2 children, and many protestations of love. Insiders said she struggled with the decision for months. She was determined to keep the family together, especially for Sunday and faith. One acquaintance said she realized she couldn't salvage the marriage or herself. She was his balancer, anchor against addiction, and planner in a chaotic relationship for years. Finally, she chose self-preservation and requested primary residential custody of the daughters, with him sharing decision-making responsibility. Both parties waived spousal and child support, indicating they owned independent finances. If her filing was the quiet end, Heath's answer was louder, rougher, and more conspicuous. He was found days after the divorce, and most crucially, his wedding band was missing. In his first performance after the divorce, he changed lyrics in 2 of his Hallmark songs. He spoke up about his personal life to thousands of fans at his Pennsylvania concert, turning a stop on his High and Alive world tour into a public reckoning. He began his first performance since splitting from Nicole Kidman after nearly 2 decades by indicating that this would be more than a country set. He performed without his wedding band, a symbolic gesture that was noted by the audience, and his emotions ranged from wrath to sadness to a curiously poignant nostalgia. The most gasps came during his 2004 breakup anthem, "You'll Think of Me," when he changed the line, "Take your space and take your reasons," into a venomous, Take your unreasonable reasons, which many saw as a thinly veiled shot at Nicole and their divorce. This frustrated outburst contrasted with the slideshow of him and their two teenage daughters in Heart Like a Hometown, which seemed like a reluctant nod to his family even as they broke up. Fans also noticed that he removed The Fighter from his set list, a 2016 smash thought to have been inspired directly by his love with Nicole and regularly performed with her in mind, erasing their shared past from his stage acts. He frankly recounted his past, including how his parents urged him to quit school to pursue music, to remind himself and the audience of his love before fame, marriage, and controversy. The emotional roller coaster continued as rumors circulated about his alleged closeness to younger musician Maggie Baugh, who was absent that night. Viral clips of him serenading her with changed lyrics at prior shows cast a cloud over the performance. His absence and frequent set list adjustments added to his private life's intrigue and drama. His performance became more than a concert by night's end. Divorce proceedings and Keith's explosive concert changed the media overnight. From my perspective, the breakup between Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban is not merely a celebrity headline. It is a revealing reflection of how love, identity, and endurance are tested under the relentless pressure of fame. Their story, once celebrated as the epitome of devotion and resilience, now stands as a reminder that even the strongest bonds can fracture when emotional labor, public expectation, and personal transformation pull in different directions. In truth, I see their marriage as a paradox, a relationship built on healing yet strained by the very wounds it sought to mend. Both Nicole and Keith entered the union searching for restoration. She for stability after emotional loss, he for redemption after years of self-destruction. For a time, they became each other's sanctuary. But when one partner assumes the role of savior, and the other becomes the one who must be saved, love gradually turns into responsibility, and tenderness becomes duty. I believe this dynamic, though born from compassion, can erode intimacy over time. A healthy relationship demands equilibrium, not constant rescue. The greatest tragedy of long marriages under public scrutiny is how performance often replaces authenticity. Celebrities live not only their own lives, but also the lives projected onto them. For nearly 2 decades, Nicole and Keith were tasked with upholding the myth of enduring love, a narrative that comforted millions who wished to believe in it. Every red carpet smile, every affectionate gesture became both a reassurance and a burden. I think the exhaustion of sustaining that ideal eventually created an emotional gap too wide to bridge. When love must be continually proven to the world, it loses its private strength. Nicole's decision to end the marriage, in my view, represents not defeat but self-preservation. After years of being both partner and caretaker, she chose to reclaim balance. It is not selfishness, it is clarity. Modern women, especially those in the spotlight, often face judgment for walking away from perfect relationships. Yet emotional survival is as essential as physical health. The quiet courage to recognize that love has transformed into obligation deserves respect, not scrutiny. Keith's reaction, pouring his grief, anger, and nostalgia into performance, reveals another side of the human condition. Artists often translate pain into expression. His lyric changes, the absence of his wedding band, the emotional tone of his concert, all these are not simply public gestures, but manifestations of loss, confusion, and perhaps guilt. However, I also believe his actions illustrate a fundamental difference in how men and women process separation. Where she sought reflection and closure, he turned to defiance and expression. Both are forms of mourning, yet they speak different emotional languages. On a broader level, their story poses a question about modern love in an era of visibility. Can intimacy truly survive when the world becomes a third participant in a marriage? The constant exposure to public judgment, coupled with the demands of 2 global careers, likely magnified every flaw and silenced every private attempt at reconciliation. The lesson here is that love, to thrive, needs protected space, something increasingly rare in the age of cameras and curated narratives. If I were to suggest a solution not only for them, but for anyone caught in similar cycles, it would be this. Emotional sustainability must be prioritized over image. Couples, celebrity or not, should have the freedom to redefine their connection without the pressure of maintaining appearances. Therapy, mutual boundaries, and honest communication must replace silent endurance. Love cannot be preserved by denial. It can only evolve through truth. In the end, I see Nicole and Keith's story not as a failure, but as a human evolution. Two people met when they needed each other most, grew together, and perhaps grew apart when their paths of healing diverged. The beauty of their relationship lies not only in its longevity, but also in its authenticity at every stage, even in its ending. For them, and for many others, the end of a marriage does not mean the end of love. It often marks the beginning of understanding, of oneself, of the other, and of what it truly means to love without losing oneself.